Hi everyone, it's me again, Leanna Biddle, your Career Education Manager for the Warner College of Natural Resources. So as a part of the Career Services Takeover on Tuesdays through Instagram, today we'll be talking about the federal resume and essentially how it differs from a more general resume or what you typically create. And so what I have for you all to see is the Resource Center, which I've went over in my previous video that focused on resume overview. And so I wanted to show you where some of those federal resources were, and then what we'll do is go through an actual resume guide and talk through some of the differences between a federal resume and a general resume. So when looking at the Career Center's Resource Center, what you'll do is on the left, click Career Interests and go down to Law, Public Safety, and Government. From there, you'll be taken to a whole list of different resources that relate to federal employment or maybe different federal agencies that you may have an interest in. As you go down, you should have access to the Federal Resume Guide. Let's continue moving down so I can find it for you all. Awesome. So it's going to be located down here, Federal Resume Guide, CSU Career Center. You'll click into it, and from there you'll be taken to a guide that will hopefully be helpful as you move forward in developing a federal resume. And so some of the differences that quickly stand out, the federal resume is similar in that your resume will still have a header, it'll still have different sections, and you'll still want to include a lot of pieces of information about you, especially as it relates to the employer. So thinking about tailoring your resume to the position you're applying to. Some big differences, your federal resume can be as long as it needs to be. And so that goes against kind of the quote unquote standard of a resume. Usually resumes tend to be a page to 2 pages. A federal resume can be as long as it needs to be. So I have reviewed a 14-page resume because someone had a list of experiences that they wanted to include and also a lot of detail within those experiences. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So some differences that stand out as we're looking through credits earned. And so essentially when the federal government is going through the hiring process, what they'll do is they'll look at both academia and your experience that you have. Could be professional experience, potentially volunteer experience, anything that you have. And so there is a correlation there. And so putting your credits earned essentially will give you a higher score, if you will, in the application process. And so while it's good to include your degree, it's good to include where you received your degree, potentially your GPA as well. It's always good to include your credits earned as well. Typically, you can find that information on your unofficial transcripts. Going down, so this person had previous federal experience, and so within this they showed essentially a promotion within GS, which is General Schedule. I'll talk a little bit about what that means. But within the resume, what you'll see that looks a bit different from a general resume is you'll see address of the organization. You'll see starting, ending salary. Typically, you can just put salary if it stays the same, but if it changes, you might want to include the bump up, if you will. Hours per week, so how long did you work? Going down, supervisor. So the supervisor name, potentially their role, and then contact, and if the organization is able to contact that person. And so those are some standout differences of what to include. I've gotten many questions of, what if I don't know my salary? Is it okay if I include my hourly rate? Yes, it's totally fine to include your hourly rate. I would guesstimate your salary to the best of your ability, especially if you're looking at positions from the past and you just don't have an idea anymore. So really thinking in that lens. Essentially what they're doing and asking for all of this information is to identify how long you worked within that role. And so as you're looking through federal opportunities, it may say that you need a year experience with a certain experience or in a certain type of role. And so with that being said, they want to make sure that it is a year. So that could be 52 weeks, 40 hours per week. So that is where they're trying to essentially identify who are the best candidates for a specific opportunity. So that's why they ask some of those more specific questions. And if you have any questions as it pertains to your experiences and how that may relate to a federal resume, feel free to reach out and we can have an individualized conversation. Another question I often get is, what if I don't have a relationship with my supervisor anymore? I've seen a plethora of different things put within that category, such as contact me before reaching out, and that may be not including a phone number. If you didn't have a supervisor, maybe you had a mentor, maybe you had a site guide or someone who you could connect with within that role. And so feel free, again, this is providing agency and giving you that space to put what you choose on your resume. And again, if it comes to specifics, we can talk through what that could look like for you and as you move forward. Going down, you'll see a great number of bullet points, and that is why federal resumes are so long, because they want as much detail as possible. So what I would do, I believe in the past video I created, I talked about master resumes versus target resumes. A federal resume will be very similar to a master resume in terms of everything that you've done. And so if you are interested in federal opportunities, it might be wise to include all of the pieces of information we're talking about on your master resume. And so you're not kind of digging in your old files and old documents of some of the specifics of your job, like salary, hours worked per week, supervisor, address, all those bits and pieces. So it might be good to include that information now so you have it on record. So again, you see a number of different bullet points. It's always good to really think about your position, right? And so I see, for example, a bullet point could include um, worked outdoors with 5 different peers, right? But I want you to think specifically about what you did in the outdoors. Think specific, think of the technical piece, so maybe what tools you used. Think about where you worked, really, again, sparsing out maybe some of those more generic bullet points that you have so you can be as specific as possible, especially as it relates to the job. And so I think USA Jobs and the application process does a really good job of laying out what the job entails and what are some of the technical skills needed. So within that, you have that ability to make a connection with a past experience you have, whether it be work, whether it be volunteer, whether it be an extracurricular involvement that you have, you're able to make those deep connections with the announcement as it compares to your resume and as you move forward. So again, moving down, I would, for every experience, just to play it safe, I would include salary. If you weren't paid, you can just put simply unpaid. Hours per week, again, the address, supervisor, or mentor contact, whatever that looked like for you within that role. Going down, you might see within federal opportunities that technical skills might be listed, and so it would be wise to have a technical skills section and lay out what are some of those skills that you have. Technical skills, as they differ from transferable skills, this could be learned within a job. This could be learned within academia. And so some examples, as you see before you, ATV experience, a chainsaw experience, it could be GIS experience that you gained in the classroom. Again, thinking through the technical skills that you've gained over time through academia, through experiences, maybe extracurriculars as well. Whereas transferable skills is looking at some of those skills you gained in that experience, but transferable skills could be communication, it could be teamwork, it could be customer service. Again, being able to translate those skills to a specific job based off of other experiences that you've had. So very similar, field experience and coursework. That's one section that I like to include within a federal resume is academic coursework, especially because they're looking at both academia and experiences. And so I know many natural resources students, for example, take NR 220. That's a great example of listing out that class specifically and what are some of those skills that you've learned within that course, kind of the technical piece to it and as it relates to a job and as you move forward. We have NR 220 listed here. And so if you need an example of how that was identified or how that was described, this is a good example for you. Campus involvement, volunteer experience. As you're looking through this, you might be thinking, wow, this is very similar to a general resume in terms of what sections are included. Again, it's thinking about what are some of those specifics within the actual federal resume that you can include and not worrying about page length. That's oftentimes where students stop and think, am I including too much information? Should I stop? Is 2 pages enough? The more the merrier. And so include as much information as you can and really thinking about your experiences as they relate to the job and what are some of those experiences that you have that could be transferable, right? Thinking about those skills that we talked about a little bit earlier. One tip, if you will, so as you're going through USA Jobs, you will have the ability to upload a resume or use their resume builder. And so everyone has their own preference. What I would recommend is looking at the resume builder and making sure all of what they're asking for is included in your own resume. And so I've connected with a federal employer, and in discussing with him what his preference was, he appreciated more individualized resumes. And so I would keep that in mind as you move forward. Creating your own resume, again, it could be a master resume, so it's easy for you to keep all of that content, really making it your own, making sure all of what's included in the resume builder is included in your federal resume, and then attaching that to USA Jobs, there we go, attaching that in a PDF format, and so your document can't move around. So again, just a quick tip, the resume builder is flashy because it's easier, and at the same time, you want to make sure that you stand out as an applicant. And so being able to save your own resume in a PDF form within USA Jobs may be of benefit as you go through the application process and making it easy to understand as well. I did want to go back. If we go back within the Resource Center specifically, there are different resources for you as you move forward. So going through, what you might be able to do, for example, is clicking on specific career interests. Let's see, sustainability and environment. Let's see, going down. Okay. There might be some different resume guides that might be helpful for you. So actually, let me do this. If we click on topics, resume, perfect. So federal fish, wildlife, and conservation biology. So I know this is a resource that was offered within the slides within Instagram. And so just clicking through quickly, every federal resume that you view might look a little bit different. But again, this does a good job of showing how this could be laid out, the depth of information that's included within the federal resume. Of course, everyone includes different information. And so as you move forward and as you think about your federal resume and how you hope to develop it, please know that I'm a resource in having that conversation and getting feedback on what might be best to include, especially as it relates to the job, because there might be added components of what you need to include within your federal resume and as you move forward. And so with that, if you have any questions moving forward, if you would just like a simple review of your resume, I'm happy to do that, and have a great rest of your day.